Hello everyone. I printed the pieces for an ATST and wanted to create an environment to complete the model. The model was glued together using CA glue and zip. It was then coated in a 2-in-1 filler and sandable primer. To create the base and the tree, I used XPS foam. The tree pieces were glued into a stack and then carved to the desired shape. Caulk was used to fill any gaps and create the bark texture. The base colors were painted onto both the base and the tree. Then I dry brushed a light tan onto the bark texture and then the tree was glued into place. Green flocking was then glued onto the green section of the base. Using an airbrush and various shades of green, I painted the ground piece and the base of the tree. Since I already had the airbrush set up, I went ahead and painted the weathering onto the ATST. When finished spraying, I worked back into the recesses with a fine-tipped brush. When the ATST was painted, it was then glued into place with CA glue and set with Zip Kicker. Then the reindeer moss was glued into place. In order to create the ferns, I cut out points of green paper and sliced each piece in multiple areas in order to create the fern's leaves. These were then curved and glued around a bead. And then the final fern was glued into the diorama. I then used the airbrush to blend the ferns, reindeer moss, and ground into each other. Then I added a splatter onto the entire base and model. To create the platform for the hut, I glued coffee stirrers together and then cut to the desired shape. Then the platform and the hut were attached to the tree. I used a piece of hemp cord to help guide with the placement and descension of the steps. Then everything was base painted. Tan was then dry brushed onto the hut, base, and steps. Green washes were then applied to help further age the wood. To create the railing, I sliced the coffee stirrers into thin strips and then glued these into place. The railing was then based and painted just like the platforms and stairs. Using a very thinned out paint and a fine tipped brush, I added rings to the top of the tree trunk. To paint Wicket, I left him attached to his base and blocked in the major colors. After adding the detail paint, Wicket was removed from his base and then glued into place using CA glue. If you haven't done so yet, hit those like and subscribe buttons to see more builds coming your way. And follow on Instagram and Twitter.